Congress certainly is the world's best lawmaking body ever. Because just a couple months ago, a Minnesota senator proposed a law that would rename Greenland to Red, White, and Blue Land. Yeah, it's totally normal to rename someone's country whenever you feel like it. And while America may be perfectly equipped with their jackets and their American flags to hold one in Greenland and say, "This is my country now," when Americans are asked about the same level of patriotism, their answer is like Greenland, ice cold. The American Legion found on June 12, 2023, that Americans are increasingly cynical about our future. In other words, they're pessimistic that if all outcomes are equal, the American government, the American economy, and the quality of America as a nation will lead us into a darker future than we are right now. And while this may seem like another haha, America needs to wake up moment, the fact is, the more pessimistic we are about our future, the less of a future we have. And so it's considering that the Hudson Institute found on May 5th, 2025, that the United States' pessimism is devaluing our future. And that means the less we believe in the American dream, the more it begins to erode. It becomes absolutely imperative that we open our eyes to the current situation and ask today's question: is there too much pessimism in America today? And the answer is sadly yes, because it's disabling our society on a systematic level. We see this first because it's allowing media to manipulate people. Second, because it's causing extreme political distrust. And finally, because it's leading to a lack of patriotism. Now, in times like these, we have to go back to those memories that we all share. Childhood stories. And I want to tell you all about Chicken Little. In the famous child's book, the story goes that Chicken Little gets hit with an acorn on her head and then starts yelling to everyone, "The sky is falling down! The sky is falling down! The sky is falling down!" And the entire city goes into chaos. Now imagine the acorn is Fox News and Chicken Little is the average American. Because of our pessimism, every time the news says something, the sky begins to fall down. And that's why the first reason that American pessimism is growing to a far too intense level is because it's allowing media to manipulate people. The BBC found on April 7th, 2025, that multiple American news networks like CNN, NBC, CNBC, ABC, literally every BC network, is saying that America is going to fall into a recession, and people are believing that. But if we actually take a step back and think about what's happening, you'll find the story is much different than the news narrative. And that's exactly why. Focus Economics tells us that the US is actually way ahead of every other country. In fact, take China for example, everyone's economic enemy. Their GDP stands at $19 billion. Great, right? America's GDP stands at $30 billion. I'm not saying America is perfect, but pessimism has pushed us to the point that just because the media says something's wrong, there's no longer hope that the American economy and the American government is strong as it'll ever be. Media is now taking American pessimism like a dry twig and setting it aflame until all Americans are burned in the crossfire. But while we're on the point of dangerous media, I want to talk about something that's close to my heart as an extemper: the problems with Reddit. Because while I was looking for a funny joke for this speech, I saw one of the wildest attacks ever. The Reddit title said, "Don't steal, don't lie, don't cheat." Finally, Reddit is saying something nice to people. I clicked on it. The government hates the competition. Because across the board, Americans no longer trust in their government, and it's robbing our future. That's why the second reason that American pessimism has grown too much in America is because it's causing a clinical level of distrust in the government, something that we're not ready to handle. The Bloomberg found 1 week ago that Americans have been less and less trustful of the government, either because it's mistakes made by presidents or it's just legislators not being able to do anything. But with that distrust comes a lack of power in the ideals that the government represents. And that's where the problem starts. because The Hill found 3 days ago that not only is this political distrust making the American government weaker, but now less Americans are going to the voting lines than they ever did before. Less Americans are preaching about democracy than they ever did before. Less Americans believe in the promise of our government than ever before. And that cynicism is the most dangerous thing that we could ever have. But finally, let's put on our cowboy hats, hold our AR-15s, and say, "Ra-ta-ta-ta-ta, this is America." Okay, Americans aren't nearly as excited about that as they are Call of Duty, because just a couple days ago, Call of Duty introduced a new default, where instead of American flags being on most vests, they started putting foreign country options. And while that may be great representation, Americans are no longer playing the game of patriotism, and everyone in America is losing as a result. And that's why the final reason that America is absolutely going to be destroyed by pessimism is because it's leading to a lack of patriotism. Which is why The Hill tells us in a separate article just yesterday that America has always been led by the sense of patriotism. Whether it was in the 50s or during World War II, we always had some hope that America was a special nation. Not anymore. The Brookings Institute found on October 25th, 2024, that American patriotism and American exceptionalism, which makes us think that our country is something special, is now falling apart. We no longer think that this ground we're standing on, that this country we represent, is something that means something special. And as a result of that, America no longer holds its power. So it was considering that American pessimism was devaluing this country that we asked today's question. Is American pessimism growing too much? And the answer was yes. First, because of media. Second, because of political distrust. And finally, because of the lack of patriotism. Because while Greenland might be the perfect American real estate project, it's time to hold on to our American flags right here and say that we have the capacity and the country to do something special as a nation.